Hello. Welcome to In Conversation with Customers. Today, I've got a guest that I've wanted to get on for so long, more because of what she does, but also because she's an absolutely great person. But Miriam is with us today to talk about corporate work, and she talks about, she's a business advisor, and she talks about how she can improve corporate businesses, improve the culture within businesses, but she also helps coaches, consultants, other business owners to get more corporate work. But I'm going to let her tell you more about that now, and then we're going to have an amazing conversation. I can assure you of that. Miriam, hey.
Hello. Hi, guys. Thank you so much for this opportunity. And I'm very excited to be speaking with you because I know that we share a lot of opinions and passions. So this is great to be speaking to you today. Yeah, just the shortest intro because people don't want to hear a long spiel. I'm a corporate consultant. I work with very large companies and help them improve their culture, but not in the traditional culture change type ways, because I'm really all about rehumanizing work. In fact, that's my hashtag, rehumanizing work. And I want to create places where human potential can truly flourish. And that's something I've been doing for a very long time, for basically all my corporate and then consulting life. But in the last 3, 4 years, I realized that achieving my mission of changing corporate culture around the world isn't something I can do on my own. And while I love working with my corporate clients, I realized I need other people, and I want as many other people going into corporates to really change corporate culture there as well. And that's when I started working with coaches and speakers and trainers and basically experts who are predominantly working online at the moment, but they also want to get into corporates, or maybe people who are in corporate and want to start a consulting business. They're kind of my people. If they have an expertise that really impacts the people inside of corporate companies, then I show them how they can win corporate clients.
Brilliant. I'm glad you got that in quickly, because I was thinking, I wonder if anyone would be thinking that in terms of, well, if the corporate work's so great, why are you working with coaches, consultants? And that's exactly what it is, because you can't do it all alone. And that's what I say with my work as well, is that I want more and more people to start doing the kind of work I do, because I can't serve everyone. And I think that, having more people working with these corporate businesses, because I think there are still a lot of companies that are a little bit behind from the culture perspective and the humanization of work and that sort of thing. So that's why I love what you do. But let's start with the humanization of businesses and corporate businesses and look at what that looks like to you and your definition of that.
Well, it's so funny because everybody is talking about automation and AI and everything like that, which actually I'm a huge fan of. Yeah. I use AI every single day, and I do think corporates should adopt AI, but not in the extremely short-sighted way of getting rid of tons of people, but in the way that they allow to take the kind of digital toil, the really boring, crappy type of work that people have to do as part of their job, that stops them from actually using their strategic thinking, their creativity, all of the good things that they were originally hired for, but they can't quite get around it because they have to type up yet another report or analyze yet another spreadsheet. Take that away and really create a place where people can flourish in their potential, where they can use creativity to come up with great new products, great new ways of doing things, great new ways of supporting their supply chain, great new ways of, all of the things that can actually make the world a better place. And the trick for me here is that it doesn't just make the world a better place for that particular business, it does, great business sense, but one of the things that has been shown over and over again is that when people feel happier at work, they start to make more ethical decisions. So not just decisions that are good for their own business or for themselves, but actually they consider the wider impact of what the decisions will do to their supply chain, to the people around them, to the environment, and so on. So in a practical sense, that could mean that if you are a buyer in a retail environment and you feel happy at work, you might go that extra step to check out, does my supply chain include, like use child labor or forced labor? And you're like, no, we're not going to work with these people, even though it might be cheap, but no, we're not going to do that. So it's that kind of really ethical decisions that people are making when they're happy at work. So to me, it sounds really simple. Make people happy at work, and everybody will be making decisions that are literally better for the world. So that's what it looks like to me, is going into organizations and say, okay, how can I help people feel happier at their work? How can they be more engaged, more fulfilled, feel that they have more of a sense of achievement, better relationships with their colleagues? How can I do that? And I have a range of tools and methods on how I do that type of consulting. But that is not just limited to traditional consulting. There can be so many things that do that. You go into an organization, you're a breath worker, and you have help people feel less stressed. You make them feel happier at work, and the trickle down effect might very, very well be that they're making a better decision about something that impacts society. So that's what it looks like for me.
Brilliant.
Thanks for coming to my tip.
I love the bit that you brought up about the ethical side of it and the wider impact that it can have when people are happy at work. And it brings me to an example of what I can give you with that. When I was in the corporate kind of world of working, and this was at the beginning of my career, and I worked in a supermarket, and for a long time, the food that went out of date, it would just be chucked in the compactor and it would just go to landfill. And they always wanted us to separate it into the right things and do all these things, but nobody was cared about it. It was like, well, it's only going to go to landfill anyway. Who gives a damn? And we weren't happy about it. And we was like, this could do so much good if it went to like homeless people, charities, that sort of thing. And then after, I don't know how many years, a few years, they actually did bring that in, where they started to give the stuff that was still edible to charities and homeless and things like that. And then all of a sudden, everyone was on board with that. And then they started to do the things that they wanted to do in the first place because it was going to a much better cause. And I think that talks about that, is that the culture is that they're listening to what we want, but they're also doing the right thing for society as well. And that meant that everyone got on board with that and would start to do things how the company wanted us to.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of times there are little nudges that kind of set the snowball of change rolling. So I find that, as you described, the company has like, oh, we should be doing X, but everybody's like, oh, what's the point? We have always done it this way. We don't see the reason to change. It's more work and blah, 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 like all the reasons. But when you start changing small things and say, well, actually, a simple campaign like this food will go to this food bank, which, unfortunately people have to use, but it will really, it will feed these kids whose parents are already working 2 jobs and still struggling. All of a sudden people go like, yeah, okay, let's do some change. And it's a small nudge. It's not a huge, massive, expensive type intervention. It's nudges. And I love doing those nudges that really shift things.
I think that sometimes it is, isn't it? It's just small changes that can make a big difference. And there's the one that, talking about food banks at the moment, I've seen someone's where they've got these like little bin things and they want you to put food in that can go to the food banks. And yeah, sometimes you get some that are fairly full, but you often get some that haven't got a lot in it. And I think as well, sometimes it's just that the customers don't think to pick up things when they're going around to go, oh, I can put that into the food bank. So what I think that they should do is say at the end of when you put it through the till, say, would you like to add an extra pound or an extra whatever X amount? And then we'll pick the food and take that to the food bank, and then we'll toss up all the money and then we'll put it together and do all this. And I think people will be far more likely to just press a button and say, yeah, I'll do that amount extra. But it's such a small change, but it can make a big difference in company culture, what it does to society. And yeah, there's little things like that I think just make a huge difference sometimes.
Absolutely. And in fact, some places do something very similar.
Oh, okay. I haven't seen it, but I am in quite a rural area, so
I think one of the supermarket chains said like, do you want to round up to, like it's 80p, so if you want to round up to £1, and that really goes then. So it's not quite as specific as you're describing, but yeah, And once that kind of thing starts to happen, and it's not a big deal, you can make these changes fairly simply.
Yeah.
And once that starts to happen, the employees feel better about their job. They see more purpose. And let's face it, we all deep down want purpose. We want to see how our actions make a difference in the world, how it contributes to something bigger than just us.
Yeah. And I think as well, like when I'm thinking about like when people go to take a certain job, they obviously come in for the money that they're going to provide them, because who takes a job otherwise than for the money? But I think they stay for the culture and the type of company, and if it's a company that they enjoy. If it isn't, they'll just go and find a new company to go for, because they can work for anyone. But if it's somewhere that is so much different and better in terms of the culture, they'll stay for that, even though then obviously the money is an added bonus. And I think that's what people need to realize, is that it's the culture that you create that keeps your employees, and obviously it's a lot cheaper for you to keep the great employees. You get the best people, and so it is profitable for businesses, but it's also better for the employees as well.
Absolutely, it's like a virtuous circle, that you just create more and more positive outcomes for everybody involved. And here's some very interesting stats that organizations, when they have to replace people, depending on the level of seniority of those people, and often that comes with expertise. So if somebody at a very junior level, not much expertise, to replace them costs about 50% of their salary. So they'll have to pay that salary plus an extra 50%, which is expensive. But the moment you get to somebody who is more senior or has greater expertise or specialisms, that cost can go up to 200% of the salary. So if you have somebody who's at, I don't know, 80 to, let's say, 100K, to replace them costs you 200K before you pay the salary. So that is in terms of productivity, in terms of recruitment costs, in terms of lost insights, in terms of knock-on effects, because when one person leaves, other people start thinking, should I leave? And there are very well-researched statistics out there, and it just goes to show that if you have senior people in your team and you lose 3 of them, you're down over $500,000 in 1 year. Like, well, that's expensive, right?
Yeah. And that's the thing as well. It's like companies, they might be able to cut corners and keep some of those costs down, but then you're probably going to have even more turnover, and you have to do it more often. So again, it's going to cost you money. Or you can do it right, but you're still going to keep losing employees, so it's still going to cost you. So it's better to work internally first, get the culture right, and then you can reduce those costs. And do you think that a lot of companies see those costs of having to keep hiring new people, or is it almost like they're oblivious to it, and that's why they don't make those changes?
Well, I mean, there's some companies who obviously do see it, and I'm very fortunate to be working with someone. And
Yeah.
I think I think it's maybe even worth saying it's not necessarily if the whole company sees it or not. You have certain people, like certain teams or divisions or regions that see it, and you have others that don't. And I I'm not convinced. I mean, when I was in corporate, because I used to be CFO in a number of companies, no, I never had HR come to me and say that this is how much it costs. So, and we did not measure the impact of people leaving. So, no, it wouldn't have been available to me. I only learned all of this when I did research and when I, really worked through with like both in the business where I was CFO and then later as a consultant. It was like, wow, this person has left and that project has stalled. And replacing them instead of 3 months has taken almost 9 months. So all of these things haven't happened. And they also took 3 of the team members away with them. And like you're like, oh, wow, that's expensive. But it was only once I actually sat down and did that work. Even though there's research out there, I don't think it is used by companies as much as it should be.
Okay, so there are some companies that are aware of it, but not others. So what is it that stops companies from making these changes internally to like the culture, that makes them think that it's not worth doing? Because there are so many that don't, even though we know it is very much worth doing.
I think there is a number of reasons. Like in all of these things, we try to look for a key reason. And the reality is there isn't just one, there is a range of reasons. First up, I would say is, everybody talks about employees not being engaged. You know what? A lot of senior leaders are also not that engaged. They also just go there for the salary. So there is that challenge that people aren't connected to all the things that make going to work worthwhile, which is about having great relationship at work, having a sense of purpose, having a sense of achievement, having a sense of progress and mastery, all of those kind of positive drivers that mean people are engaged at work. They're lacking for many, 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 many people. And then we jump to, oh, let's jump on this trend, or let's jump on that, or let's do this, and that will change everything. So trying to find a silver bullet answer is the second issue, because it's trying to drive something. I will also say that consultancies have not necessarily helped this, because and hands up, I work for one of the largest consultancies in the world, and yes, when I look back at how we did culture transformation, for example, I do cringe, because we didn't do it with the kind of respect for the creative adults in organizations that were there. We kind of like looked at people more like cogs in a wheel, and you can shuffle them around, and you feed them a bit of whatever not, and then the culture will transform. It doesn't work like that. Humans don't work like that. So I think I'm personally very adverse to the so-called best practices, because I think they stifle it, because they assume that every human is the same, and therefore you can treat every human the same way, which obviously is rubbish, right? And I think it's actually disrespectful. So those would be my top 3 reasons why it's not happening. Plus, it's hard. It's not easy. It's much easier to say, oh, let's just all go agile and then everybody will be happy. No, they don't.
And I suppose as well, because if so many companies are just doing the same thing around the world, a lot of people just go with the norm. They go with what is expected, what other people do. And if everyone else is doing it wrong, or not in the best way, then everyone else, they're just going to just join suit. And there's a thing I heard a few years ago, and someone said that if you want to really stand out in your industry, or you want to do something really good, look what the majority are doing and then do the opposite, because the majority is nearly always wrong. And I think that goes for this culture work as well. It's like, look at what the majority are doing and then do something completely different, because they're probably wrong.
100%, 100%. And, while I am all for taking inspiration from companies, you look at some companies that seem to have a great culture, and you're like, okay, let's take some inspiration, but don't just try to cookie cutter it on top of, your organization. And that's exactly what the big consultancies do. They cookie cutter it. And it doesn't work, because again, every organization has a different mix of people, different dynamics, different history, and we should respect that and accept that it is different, and that's fine. That's not scary. Plus, the other thing that always makes me laugh is all these companies are like, we want to be the leader of X, but we're going to do everything that everybody else does. How does that work? How can you be the leader, but also the follower? It doesn't really work. So, yeah, but it does take courage. Well, I will admit, it does take courage to do things a bit differently. So,
Got it. So yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. So when it comes to the corporate work, then, and when you're trying to make those changes within organizations, I think you said that it's not cookie cutter. So what are some of the things that you do when you go into companies to improve that culture and stuff like that within companies?
Well, the number one thing I do is I activate the self-leadership in leaders and teams. So I help them tap into their own potential. So I help them, and it sounds crazy, but a lot of times companies come to me and say, well, we want to change, our team performance, or we want to improve our collaboration. And I go like, yeah, okay, then just do it. Oh, but we don't know, we can't do it. And they're like, actually, you can, you have everything. And it's really helping them understand all the potential that they have, because they're all smart people, they're all creative, they're all adults. They know how to be collaborative. I mean, that's what they with their friends and their family all the time. So they actually know how to communicate with others, and it's really helping them trust themselves. And then we design little projects, like little rapid projects that we can implement, but that they can lead, so that they gain the confidence that, yeah, they can actually achieve that and make that change. And the biggest compliment for me always is that when I speak to them 3 months, 6 months down the line, I said like, oh, how's it going? Like, oh, what do you mean? It's always been like this. We always were at this level of collaboration. We've always had great communication, because they have driven everything themselves, and they've experimented, tweaked, progressed. Sometimes I look at what they're doing and I'm like, wow, that is not what I thought they would be doing, but that's fine, because they found their own groove. They found what will work for them. They found their best solutions. And so that's, I know it doesn't give you the, oh, I take them through X, Y, Z steps.
No. But I think that in itself actually is a great answer, though, because what you're saying is that every company needs to do it in their way. And yeah, okay, it might take a little bit of work to find what that is, and it might take a bit of experimentation, but it's worth it for the benefits that we've talked about already.
Absolutely. And it's the only way how it's going to be lasting. And it's the only way how they're going to be equipped to deal with the next change, because we all know that companies don't operate a vacuum. They have to deal with what's coming at them from the market, from the customers, from technology changes. They have to adapt all the time, and that speed actually genuinely has increased. So it's no good for a set of consultants who come in to them and say, right, from now on you do X, and then they have to come back in 2 years' time to like, oh, by the way, now you need to do Y, and then in 2 years again, now you have to do Z. It's much better if they grow their own capabilities to adapt to whatever changes are coming, and to increase the flourishing. And I always look at it when I see teams who were flat out stressed, overworked, not delivering, and then a year on, they're delivering twice as much, but the teams are more relaxed and more joyful. So it's like, wow, that's exactly what I'm hoping for.
So with your clients then, are you looking for that long-term change, the thing that's going to allow them to succeed long-term, and that might mean being adaptable, whereas like other consultancies might come in and actually like, do you know what, we're going to do this to make it work for the next couple of years, but then when they need to change that next thing, they'll come back to us and they'll ask us to help with that as well. Do you feel like there's maybe some that are thinking along those lines?
100%. I mean, that's what all the big consultancy models are based on. They're based on the senior partners coming in, selling a fix and talking it up. And it's a long-term change, but it is a fix. Implementing that, putting lots of pods into the organization that they can then keep there, like bombs and seeds that they can bill out. And do they always do it deliberately? I'm not sure that's fair to say, but because it's never in their interest to make it a long-term, lasting, growing change, they just deliver this one fix and then, try to maximize in the back of that, engagement. Now, I should say, one of the things I do work with clients very long term as well. So I have clients that I've worked with for 6-7 years, and they hire me again and again, but not for the same thing. They hire me for the next level. So we're constantly growing and growing and growing. And just like, anybody who's ever worked with a coach, even with like a personal trainer, we know there is a next level. Once you've mastered your first 10K, you might want to go for half a marathon. And once you've gone there, you might want to go for the full marathon. And there is always a next level. And I love working with clients in that way, where I elevate them rather than keep doing the same thing.
And I think that is the right way to do it. And that's what you're saying. You're right. Whenever we get to that next level of growth, whether that's as a business or an individual, it will always bring a new set of problems. But then if you've got someone that's always solved your problems until that point, they're more likely to come to you again, because they'll be like, well, you've helped me with this. I know you didn't cause this problem. This is just a byproduct of the level that we've got to. Can you now help us with that? And if you can, then great. And that's how you can then keep your customer as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's how you establish really great relationships. I mean, I've got one client, for example, when I started working with them, they had a team of 30, literally 30. And by now, they're over 600.
Wow.
So that is, huge growth. They're blowing the revenue figures out of the water. Like, I mean, they're now doing revenues that, honestly, if I told them all those years ago when they were 30 that this is what they're going to be doing, they're like, no, that's impossible, cannot do that. But that's because as a team, they have grown. And of course, there have been changes and so on, but a lot of the core leadership really has grown and developed as people as well and as leaders. So that's why they've been able to expand, take on more, bring in more, get on more responsibility. And it's a great place to work.
Brilliant. So I want to go the other way now and look at some of the people that are looking to maybe work with corporate clients. And there's two things I would particularly want to look at is the why we might want to work with corporate clients, and then maybe look at the how as well, like some of the things you do with those, because I know you help those people as well. But I think the why would be a really good place to start, because there might be a lot of people watching this are thinking, maybe work with corporate clients, but I don't quite know if it's the right thing. So maybe your reasons why might help them to decide whether it's the right thing for them.
I mean, there is my big why, that I think, I know for a fact that as independent thinkers who are able to create real results for clients, as independent experts who can really transform the lives of individual clients, we can 100% take that zone of genius and take it into a corporate environment to impact the lives of a lot of people in one go. So you can, instead of working with tons of one-on-one clients or in group, you can impact a huge number of people because the ripple effect is massive. Plus that wider ripple effect across society, as we have discussed already, the impact that it can have for the immediate society around them, for the wider world. All of that is absolutely wonderful. And they pay really well too. We are business people, right? And we do have to bear that in mind. But a single corporate client, even for a very short engagement, say a 1 to 3 day event workshop type thing that you run for them, they can easily pay in the high 4 and multiple 5 figures for that. So they pay well. They can pay really well.
I love the two sides to that. You've got the impact side of it, and I think there are a lot of people that are very impact driven and they want to impact as many people as possible. And working with corporates can be a great way to do that, because like you said, it has a much wider impact than working with one-to-one smaller businesses maybe. But then there's also the personal thing, is that we, as business owners, we want to make more money, we want to be successful, we want to provide for our families, and this is going to make you even more money if you do it in the right way, because you can charge a lot more money to work with those corporate businesses. So I like the two sides to it, but I think that's going to appeal to lots of different people. You've got the ones that are very impact driven, but maybe they can now start to think that actually I will be compensated for that whilst I'm also creating that impact, and that's fine. Like that, one of the things I find is that a lot of people that are very impact driven often feel bad about wanting to make money themselves, and I don't think they should feel bad, because there's nothing wrong with wanting to make money and be a success, especially if you can do that whilst creating an impact. But then you have also got the people that are just right, do you know what, I just want to make a lot of money, I want to have a really successful business, and that's fine as well, as long as you still do the right thing, and then you can still be successful and charge a lot of money.
Absolutely. And you know what? When it comes to corporate, this is a lesson that I learned. When it comes to corporate and you want to make a big impact, it's your duty to charge well for it. Yeah. Because if you don't, not only is it harder for you to sell because they don't take you serious, they think you're low quality because you're not charging appropriately. And even then, when they hire you, they still don't take you as serious, and they don't implement what you do, what you say. They don't take that work and actually do whatever needs to be done. So your impact is hugely diluted. So especially for the impact people, seriously, you have to charge, not your worth, but you have to charge your impact. And that has to be a serious figure.
So obviously it's very hard to put a price figure on it, but I don't know, come up with an example then. You talked about breath work earlier on. So let's say someone comes in and they work with corporate businesses to reduce stress through breath work. They may charge a one-on-one client, I don't know, 4K, 5K maybe for a program. How much do you think that might be for a corporate business compared to that one-to-one? And I know you might need to put a bit of context on the size of the business they're working with, but maybe give people an indication of the type of money they might charge.
Yeah, I mean, I can give you some illustrations what some of my clients have done and what I do, you know.
Yeah.
So I charge a minimum of 4 or 5K for a 2-hour workshop, like a single standalone workshop, which I don't really do because I want to have a longer term impact. But if they're saying like, right, we only want this one as a taster menu, I charge a minimum 4 or 5K just for that 2 hours. Half the time that's online. I have had clients who were wellness practitioners, stress coaches who charge 15K for 3 90-minute sessions online. So instead of having a 6-month program, they just charge, they just have those 3 90-minute sessions, charge 15K for. I had one client who was a breath worker, that's why I use the example, and she landed a contract with a corporate client for 6 months, and I should say her actual work delivery was quite minimal. It was 1 session a month, so it was essentially 6 sessions, which was 18K. So especially for a breath work, that's, I thought that was a good deal. I have another client who does, I don't want to use leadership development because there's so much baggage with it, but that's basically what she does. She develops leaders, but in a very unique way. And her annual contract with the client is 180K. In that, she does a monthly coaching session. She does 2 in-person events in the year. And I think she coaches 1 leader one-on-one in a 1 hour a month session. So, you have to put it in context of like how much delivery you do in that for 180K, which I think is quite nice.
Yeah. Think about how many you would need to do one-to-one clients to make that kind of money.
Yeah.
And maybe how long you'd have to work with them for as well.
Exactly, how many hours you have to put in. So, and I should say, this particular client, she started just coaching the executive at I think it was 45 minutes a month at 5K. So, that's, and it expanded from there. We helped her design her program in such a way that she could upsell and create her proposals. So it exploded into this huge contract.
Yeah. And I think like we've kind of looked at it, you can charge a lot more money, and then getting into these corporate guys. Do you think a lot of corporate businesses are looking at maybe some of these smaller companies that are going to come in and do the work, and maybe they do think that this person's actually going to do better work because they're going to really want to keep us as a client, they're really going to want to deliver? Do you think they would be open to that rather than going to maybe some of the bigger businesses that do that sort of thing?
Absolutely. Well, I know because they're hiring me and my clients, so they are doing it. They also are doing it, and this is where people think about getting corporate clients slightly from a wrong angle. To make really good money with corporates, you don't need to work with the whole organization. And it's not that if you go in as a small business, as an individual consultant or trainer or coach, you don't go in and you work with the whole organization of 20, 50, 100,000 employees. I mean, you can't. It's physically not possible. So you only need to work with individual teams and individual leaders that, if they're of a certain seniority, they can get you these big contracts. And they are definitely looking at what else is out there in the market. They are definitely less enamored with the big generic programs that the big generic consultants provide. There's quite a lot of research, been a lot of publicity recently about how the big consultancies are letting go loads of people because they can't get the work, because people are fed up with it. Because they know that they're going to get a cookie cutter solution that is actually aimed on getting bums on seats, because then the consultants can charge for these people who are embedded in the organization, and they're not getting anything customized and specific to them. So what I say to my clients is, look, you don't need hundreds of corporate clients. In fact, you wouldn't want them. That'd be horrible. Nobody serves that. You want somewhere between 3 and 10, depending on your specific offer and how you like to work. But that's all you need in the year to make several six figures. And of course, from there you can expand. You might want to join somebody else or build a team or whatever not, and then you can build it easily up to 500,000, 7 figures, and so on. But at this stage, you want to just a handful, and that does not mean you need to work with 80,000 employees. You just need to work with maybe 80.
And I think as well, some people that particularly like the coaching and speakers and experts in general, is sometimes they don't want to build 7, 8 figure companies. Sometimes they just want high 6 figures, that's easy work, like easy for them, doesn't require loads of hours, and then they can have a life outside of work as well. They can go on holidays, they can spend time with their family and whatever's important to them. So actually to them, maybe working with a very small amount of corporate clients that they only do a few hours each month, but still make a really good income, is actually really appealing to them, and they might not want to expand beyond that.
100%. And quite a lot of my clients also have one-on-one clients that they love working with. So they want to have that mixture. So they don't want to be booked out the whole time. They want to have that flexibility to pursue both types of businesses and have a life, So yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so we looked at the why. What about the how? I imagine like building relationships is going to be quite important. So let's say you've got someone who's never done corporate work, they've maybe not got the connections in the corporate space. How might they go about getting started?
Well, the first thing they always need to think about is who they actually want to work with, because all corporates think that they are unique. They all think they're really, really special. They all think they have challenges that nobody else has in the whole wide world, even though they're very common. But you need to think of, like, who do I actually want to work with, and how does my work help them or their employees? So when the moment you have that, you look at what's the industry I want to work with. And that is important, because without being able to speak to industry specific challenges, if you come across as a generalist, it's hard. Because people will say, somebody in, say, manufacturing will say, well, we have different challenges to those people in tech or to the banking people, so we want somebody who understands our challenges. Our challenges is people are stressed out, but then because we are in manufacturing, that's what they think. And if you're a consultant, just learn a bit about what they think so that you can speak to that. So that's the first step. And then really look at, okay, how does my work help? What specifically does it do? And how does it link to their challenge? So, if you have somebody who, let's stick with the breath work, these are like, well, I help people feel more relaxed. That's great, but that's not a problem that corporate hire you for. They hire you for is that, let's say they have problem getting their products out on time, or meeting customer delivery times, or anything like that, meeting deadlines or something, because their people are so stressed and going off on sick leave or leaving, or are just not productive because they're so stressed out. That's what you want to talk to. That's what's important. So you need to make that logical connection between what's going on for them, what are their challenges that my work can help them with. I call it the connect the dots. That's literally what it is, connecting the dots. And when you have that, then you can go and find them. You can actually Google them, because you can go and say, okay, who are the operations directors of companies in the banking sector? You can Google it and you will literally find details.
So there could be an opportunity to go to those people directly once you've worked out exactly what you do. And I like that bit that you said about connecting the dots kind of thing, and seeing like, okay, what my work does. And I think a lot of people do that. They go one layer deep with that. It's like, okay, this is what it does. But actually, that's not what's keeping them up at night. That's not what they're thinking about. That's not the problem that they're really thinking about. But then if you go a couple of layers deeper and then you see what the real problems are, you can connect what you do to that in some way. And like you said, then you're a specialist, and they'll be then like, especially then if you do good marketing and they're like, okay, that's how this solves that or helps solve that. Then people are going to start to be like, okay, I get that and I'm interested in that. You said that you can go to those people directly. And then I'm assuming as well, because I know from like the networking perspective, is you can network with the people who know those people who can then refer you on as well.
100%. I mean, the moment that you know who you want to talk with, you then look, okay, how can I get to them? So you can get to them directly. You can do networking. You can look at who I know who's connected to them. Where do they go? What kind of networking events do they go to? Because they do, couples love networking. So, yeah, you can figure all of that out, but unless you know the who, you can't figure out those next steps. But those next steps become more logical. It's like, well, of course, I know I want to speak to that person, and look, there is a network that they're likely to go to or that they're likely to be in. Well, I'll go to that, or I'll see who do I know, and it becomes a logical step.
Yeah, there was a book. I wish I could remember which book it was because I read so many about referrals and stuff. But they was talking about like referrals and things like that, and they talked about how someone was able to get an introduction to Hillary Clinton, and they did it completely different to someone else. How they did it was everyone else at this event was trying to speak to Hillary herself, and obviously they couldn't get to her because like she was busy doing stuff, and they just couldn't get to her. But what this one person did, he saw the person who was essentially guarding Hillary Clinton at that time. He was like making sure she was all right. She was doing bits and pieces for her, like an assistant basically. And he thought, do you know what? I'm going to go and have a conversation with that person. So he spent ages talking to her, being really interested, just building up a great relationship. And they continued that relationship. And then after however many months it was, they introduced that person to Hillary Clinton, and it ended up with them going for Christmas at the White House with Hillary Clinton. You wouldn't have done that if you were trying to speak to Hillary Clinton herself. And that's how it can be the benefits of being referred to somebody by somebody who knows that person.
Absolutely, absolutely. And, I see a lot of advice floating around on the internet, for example, about how to get around the gatekeepers. They're like, no, don't get around them. Become their best friend.
Yeah.
Because, a good gatekeeper, and I remember that when I was, a board director, I had my gatekeepers who protect my time and who I would trust. And if they said, you know what, Miriam, take this call, I would take it.
Yeah.
Even though I get hounded by like a gazillion of recruitment companies, if my gatekeeper went like, no, Miriam, speak to this person, they're good. I was like, yeah, okay, then I will speak to them. So you're 100% correct with that. Yeah.
Okay, so we've got a couple of the hows, like going to people directly, which can work if you do it in the right way, like cold outreach or just going to networking events where they are, but also going through the gatekeepers. Yeah. Is there any other hows that you would work with some of your clients on around getting in front of corporate clients? Or are they the main ones?
I think there's two things to consider. First up, we have to rid ourselves of this notion that there is one decision maker who can hire you.
Yeah.
Again, just, common sense. It's an organization of, say, 100,000 employees. Of course, there's not just one person who can hire you. There's hundreds and hundreds of them, in fact, thousands, The second one is it's not just HR. Most of the people first come to me and think like, oh, I need to get in touch with HR. I'm like, yeah, HR might be, but it's also the other people who are, are experiencing a challenge that you can help with. All the operational people, the operational leader, COOs, all of the CIOs, all of them, they have problems because their people are not doing something they want to get done. If you can help with that, you can speak to them, or at least make sure your messaging speaks to them. the strategic leaders who want to expand the company or break into new markets or create a new product, you need to speak to them. So don't just speak to, like, don't think it's one person, don't think it's just HR. And then obviously, there are loads and loads and loads and loads of ways how you can generate leads. My biggest advice is look at all the different options that are out there and pick the ones that feel energetically aligned. And if we've got 2 seconds, I'll explain what I mean, because it's something I see so many people fall down, and it's a real shame. All the approaches work. Everything works. Email works, networking works, speaking works, writing works, cold calling works. They all work. But they only work if they're right for you. And I always tell people that I have tried cold calling. I'm not a fan because I don't like the telephone. I'm happy on Zoom. That's, fine, but it's really hard to do cold Zoom calling. Nobody wants to do that, So I just don't do it. I don't like being on the phone, full stop. I have a client who is incredible. She's incredible at cold calling. She makes so much money. I mean, she sells for other people, but oh my God, she picks up the phone and she loves it, absolutely loves it. So it just goes to show it does all work, and we just have to find the strategies that are right for us and then have the courage to go for those and really go for them.
I'm really glad you said that, because I feel exactly the same thing. I always tell people this, and I had this post that I saw yesterday where it said about marketers, their usual thing is to knock down everyone else's marketing method to make theirs look great. And I always said I would never do that, because I always tell people it all works if you do it in the right way, but you have to do what works for you and what is the right thing for you. So it's like what I do in terms of referral marketing, what I would do for one company could be different to how I would do it myself, just because it's not right for me, but it could be perfect for them. Yeah. And I think that is the key, that if you're trying to get into corporate work, any of the marketing methods can work if you do it in the right way. It's aligned with you. So if it is cold calling can be brilliant. I know people that are amazing at cold calling and they get in some amazing companies, but other people just hate it. And like me and you, we hate it. And I love watching other people do cold calling. I think it's really impressive what some people do.
Really impressive, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like almost like what reality TV show, like,
yeah,
wow, they can do this. But yeah, sorry, I interrupted.
No, that's fine, because there's a guy that I like on YouTube. I don't know if you've seen him. He's called UK's most hated sales trainer or something like that. I can't remember his exact name, but he does these cold calling. He has these scripts that he uses, but he's so impressive when he's doing it. And he gives real life examples where he phones companies up. So it's not all scripted in a sense of like he'll be role playing it. He'll actually do it to show you how he can do it for like his clients and do it for himself. And it is so impressive. But I just couldn't do it myself. But for me, it's all about like the networking, building relationships, referrals. That works brilliantly for me, but it might not be perfect for someone else. Maybe they don't like asking for referrals, or they don't want to be going to networking events, or whatever their reasons might be. And that's fine, but that just means that referral marketing isn't going to be for you. But there might be something else that is, like content marketing or email or whatever. But it is all about finding what's right for you.
100%. I so agree with you. I mean, I love going to networking events, and I always get contacts there, and that's just it. One of my clients, she's an amazing speaker, and she speaks for Microsoft and Goldman Sachs and all of these like big companies, and that works for her. I have another client who's like, oh my God, I will never ever want to stand on a stage ever. So it doesn't make one better or the other. It's just whatever is right for you. I mean, there's some people who love pineapple on pizza, for goodness sake. So whatever is right for you, right?
Yeah, and that's another example. Again, speaking on the stage, that would daunt me. Like, I've never done it before. The first time I ever did it in front of people was at my wedding last year, and I gave my wedding speech in front of all the people I already know, friends and family. There wasn't a massive room, but there was a lot of people. That in itself, that was the first time in a long time I've been nervous about anything. But when I was up there looking at them, I was like, I'm actually quite nervous now, and I actually did tell them that. But it actually went all right in the end. But yeah, I wouldn't want to do that for my professional work.
Yeah, there you go.
So you're a big fan of like networking then. Is that how you get a lot of your corporate clients, through like networking and referrals and things like that?
Yeah, that is my preferred way. And the moment you get into it, you also realize that you pick your industries and you realize that they're quite small. Everybody knows everybody in some way. And I like that kind of family feel is maybe a bit too strong, but like, oh yeah, such and such. Oh yeah, you can talk, and oh, this is great, and they've just achieved this, and like excellent, and I just find it very easily flowing, and that it attracts more people into your network then as well. So yeah, I'm a big fan of that.
I completely agree. When you're in like these networking circles, is if you go to certain networking events that other people go to, it's so easy to get into these conversations. And then you mention one person, and they're like, "Oh yeah, I know them." And then, do you know that person and that person? And then sometimes it is a yes, sometimes it's a no, but then they can maybe refer you to them. And then it's like, if you get yourself into these different circles, you'll start to meet the same people that are in those different circles, but then you can expand it. But I love how it all works and how it all can come together really nicely from a networking perspective. And that's why I find it really helpful.
Yeah, 100% agree. And, it's just what works. And the other side for me is that, I'm very lucky being in London, that there are a lot of events, plus because I've got industries that I'm genuinely interested in them. So I can go to events that are, say, lectures. They often have a networking element, or talks by, the professional institutes. You can go along to them, and they always tend to have and networking element, and you go to something you're genuinely interested, you genuinely like to hear about. So even if worst case scenario you didn't meet anybody, you had a joyful time because you had something that stimulated you intellectually. But because you are there in that kind of energy, people are attracted to you. People want to chat to you. They want to find out what you're doing, and then you can have human conversations.
Brilliant. So I think we've looked at like the marketing methods, how other people get in, and it's like, yeah, it could be quite broad. It's like, pick the right one for you, which some people might be like, well, I don't know what that is, but it's like, well, come and speak to Miriam. She'll probably be able to help you, but see what you enjoy doing, see what kind of brings you alive a little bit in your marketing. And I think that there's a lot of people say that marketing is boring, but I actually don't think it is. If you do it in the way that is right for you, then it actually can be quite fun. And then I try to make my marketing as close to the fulfillment that I do for my clients. So one of the things I'll do is I'll give people an experience of what I do at no cost. But then it's like their only question after that is, do you want more of this? And then that way I can market my business by just doing what I'm great at, which then improves my obviously skills, gets me in front of more people. But then it can also lead to clients as well. Despite what people tell you, if you do free work, people don't value it. Some people do. You just need to find the right people. But yeah, I think that marketing piece, as much as we maybe haven't said that's the way to do it, maybe that's what some people want because they want that quick fix. But it is like, yeah, find the marketing method that works for you and then get really good at doing that thing.
Yeah, no, 100%. Because I've had people come to me and they had hired one of these agencies that say like, we'll get you in front of 300 companies a month. And you're like, oh my God, no, please don't. That'd be terrible. And they said like, oh yeah, I paid them for 6 months. And they send all these leads, but nothing really happens. Nobody takes calls. Nobody wants to. And like one or two that did, they were completely unqualified. And like, yeah, that's because that kind of method doesn't really work. You need to tap into what is right. And so one of the people, for example, she decided that strategic partnering was the right thing. And so she joined some partnering organizations that they're kind of niche neighbors. So not the same thing, but aligned, the same kind of client base of delivering things. And that worked beautifully, much, much better than somebody trying to pitch her to 300 companies a month.
Okay, so based on the conversation we had then, I think we have gone quite in depth with both sides of it, like with people that want to work with corporate businesses and also with the corporate businesses that can improve through their culture and stuff. Is there anything that you would have loved to have talked about today, or any questions I haven't asked you that you would like to go over now? Do you feel like we've covered quite a lot as at least an introduction, and maybe we can go on and do other ones in the future?
Oh my gosh. I tell you, we have covered a lot. And the most important thing for me is always this vision of, like why changing, because I'm very impact driven. Plus, I like money too. I guess the one thing that I would love to mention very quickly is that to run a business, it takes persistency and perseverance, because I do see, unfortunately, um, some very, very talented and passionate experts giving up too early. They try something for 3 weeks, don't see immediate results, and then give up. And that's because they think I will need to go to the end goal immediately. So I would encourage people to have your end goal, but break down, okay, what are the steps along the way that you really need? So if you have no corporate contacts, don't expect to go from, today to signing a 100K contract in 3 weeks. That is extremely unlikely. However, you can, in that time, make some contacts to sell 3, 4, 5K contracts, which allow you then to grow and build in that way. And as you look at what are those steps, look at also who do you need to be to achieve this? What do you need to, I sometimes talk about it like what energy do you need to come from to do that? And that means you need to really say like, okay, if I'm the person who's going to sell 3, 5K contracts in the next 3 weeks, that means I need to be the person who looks at how I'm going to generate those leads. That means of like, okay, I'm going to take a bet on me. I think that's where I'm trying to get to. You need to bet on you. You need to back yourself and you need to bet on you and really step into that confidence. Because if you don't, then with all the leads in the world, you're not going to convert clients. So I think that's an important thing to realize. And yet at the same time, it's really, really good fun to do that. To bet on yourself and to get that confidence, because you can see like, okay, today I'm going to sit down and reach out to 10 LinkedIn people, and you go like, yeah, I can do that because that's the kind of person who I need to be, would do. Okay, let's do it. And you just keep going, and you don't always need to have the full answers, but you take the next step and then the next step, and the next answers will appear.
I love that. I think that's a really good place to end the main conversation on, because I think people that are looking to get started in this, it's very tempting to be like, I want to get everything right away. I want to get all the success, and yeah, you'll get some, but it's not going to happen overnight. It will take time, persistence, and just growing in your abilities to reach those corporate clients and do that kind of work. But it will all come together, and it's okay if you need to start smaller and build your way up, and maybe start with smaller contracts and build your way up and that sort of thing. But I think that's the right message.
And it doesn't need to take a long time. That's the other thing, like, oh my gosh, I need to be stuck on these small contracts for a year. No, 2 months. I mean, and then in fact, I see this regularly with my clients that like after 2 months, the corporate client comes back and they're like, oh, can you do that next piece of work with us? So, it can absolutely snowball really quickly when you set everything up correctly. It's just don't commit for only 3 weeks and then throw in the towel.
Yeah. And the referrals piece can come together and snowball really quickly as well, because it's like you work for some that are in that bracket that you talked about to get you started. They'll know other people that are in that bracket, but they may also know people that are in that next level up because they're trying to get in front of those and they're networking with those people, and they might be able to refer you to them because then it makes them look good because they could be like, oh, you're brilliant at what you do. You could help these people. This gives me an in with those people as well because it allows me to make an introduction. So that can be a great way to get started on that next level.
100%. And in fact, if you're somebody who enjoys the networking side, I so recommend doing that. I had one client who had literally 0 contacts in his preferred industry and managed to grow his connections of more, not more, but like proper connections by up to 500 in just 3 months. And they were all not necessarily about willing to talk about sales, but willing to build that kind of relationship. And I mean, come on, 500 connections that are getting warmer in just 3 months. That's huge, right? And I was without spammy, DMing or anything like that. I was building real connections.
Yeah. Brilliant. Love it. Well, thank you today for this conversation. I've loved it. I've already got people in mind that I want to send this to, but I'll also put it into the community. And then we may well have questions that will lead us on to the next conversation. Because I always believe that it's never a one conversation thing. I think with what you do is so in depth, as well as there's other directions we can go in. But no, I really appreciate that today. So for people that want to connect with you, seeing with this, is there a particular way that'd be the best way to connect with you, like a particular platform or a particular method? What would you want people to do?
Ideally, if people want to connect with me on LinkedIn, I'm Miriam R. Gilbert on LinkedIn. And if you connect with me there, because I've got some very exciting things planned for the autumn, where we're going to start creating a future of work LinkedIn group. And I know LinkedIn groups have been dead, but this is a group where I want to bring together thought leaders, both from corporates as well as from individuals, where we can have real discussions of, what should the future of work look like, and what can, all sides bring to the table, and obviously therefore create connections and network, do all of these kind of things. So I would love if people connect with me on LinkedIn. If they're not on LinkedIn, I'm also on Instagram and Facebook. On Facebook, I'm Miriam Gilbert, and on Instagram, I'm at Impactfulness Lab.
Brilliant. Well, I'll put your LinkedIn profile in the comments for the group that we're going to put it in. But if I send it to people privately, I'm sure they'll be able to find you on LinkedIn, on Instagram, or Facebook, or wherever. Or they can just come to me anyway and just say, I want to connect, introduction to Miriam, and then I can make it happen. For the right people and the people that want to meet you, we'll make sure that happens. But again, really thank you today for this. It's really valuable for my community. But also hope it's provided you with something great as well, that you can use this in whatever way you want for your own business. And
absolutely. Well, thank you so much. I always appreciate talking to you, and I love the approach that you have to business. And yes, I would love to share this with my community as well, because they are the people who are on both wanting to work more with individuals and small business as well as with corporate. So they will find huge value in what you do. So it'd be great to showcase that a little bit there.
fantastic.
Thank you so much. It's been good fun.
You're very welcome. And I've really enjoyed it too. And I'm looking forward to what we might be able to talk about in the future.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Cheers. Thank you.